Hi, this is Audrey Whittington with Realtor.com, and we're going to be talking about economic insights with Chief Economist Danielle Hale. And today we're going to focus on the current state of the housing market. And the reason I want to talk about this, Danielle, is I think it's particularly important for first-time home buyers. So let's talk about where we're headed as it relates to them first.
Okay. So the current state of the housing market, I'm just going to back up a little bit and say,
Sure.
We study what's going on by looking at our inventory data on a regular basis. We're taking regular monthly measurements. That's how we know what's going on in the housing market. And some of the key trends that we've seen emerge here in the late part of 2018 is that inventory is starting to increase, which on the surface sounds like it would be great news for home buyers.
Right.
And it is for certain home buyers, but not necessarily for first-time home buyers.
Why?
So the inventory that we're starting to see come to the market is generally in high-priced coastal markets. And even in those markets, it tends to be on the upper end of the price spectrum.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's not necessarily a benefit for first-time home buyers. And the market is such where we've seen prices rise over the years. And first-time home buyers don't own a home right now by definition, so they haven't seen their equity increase. It's been a great time to own a home. You've seen your equity increase as prices go up. But first-time home buyers don't benefit from that. So when prices increase, that just sort of puts their, that means they have to save more for a down payment. It increases their monthly costs. It makes things a little bit more difficult. Not impossible, but certainly more difficult.
No, I appreciate your honesty and candor. And let me ask you a question that leads me to, what is the average price for the homes in the inventory? Like you're saying the inventory is increasing. What's the average price of that inventory?
Right. So we see prices go up seasonally in January, February timeframe, and they tend to hold that high price level. And then towards the fall, they dip a little bit. Some of that is the mix of properties that are available.
Sure.
But so this summer, at the peak of the price cycle for the year, we were at 299,000. We're now down to about 295,000. So,
right. So that's pretty stable. I mean, that's not a huge margin.
No.
Okay. So for first-time home buyers, you could also make the argument, though, that they should jump in because rates are stable, right? So while inventory might be growing, which is not great for them, rates are stable. Is that a fair statement?
So there's lots of reasons to be a first-time home buyer, right? You want to own a home so you can take advantage of some of the equity buildup from price increases. We know that mortgage rates are rising, and so buying now means you're likely to pay less for your mortgage payment than in the future if mortgage rates are a little bit higher. So that's a reason for buying now. Also, a lot of first-time home buyers or current renters report that the rents are rising. And
yeah, I remember you saying that previously.
Yeah, so even though it's more expensive maybe to buy today compared with what you would pay in rent, if you're looking at the long run, as your rents increase, that payment that you lock in today, if you do a fixed rate mortgage, which most people do.
Sure, like a 15 or a 30.
Yeah, so that's fixed. And so eventually rents will increase enough so that it's actually cheaper on a monthly basis to own. And in the meanwhile, you're building up equity. If prices increase, you build up some equity. And even if they don't increase, you're paying down your mortgage every month. So you're building up some equity that way. So there are lots of reasons to be a home buyer and get into home ownership. And in fact, we have seen the home ownership rate rise. So even though it's a challenging environment for first-time home buyers, we have seen some increase in the home ownership rate, and that's in our forecast for 2019. We expect it to continue to increase.
And I can tell you, just on a personal level, as a person who both rents and owns, it is actually much more expensive to be renting. So really, just like you said, locked into a 30-year rate a long time ago, and the rents are going up.
Yeah.
So now about a housing bubble, let's talk about just really those two words, which I actually think can be a bit inflammatory.
Yes, they can be. I think that was how we described the market in
what was it, 08 or?
Well, I guess the peak was probably between 2005 and 2007,
right,
and then
there you go.
Sort of the crash after that.
Yeah, I bought a house in the crash, so
like when prices went down? Yeah. Oh, okay, that's a good time to buy. So yes, prices have increased now steadily for the last few years. So a lot of people are looking at the market now and saying, we keep seeing prices go up and up and up. Are we there again? And the answer, I would say, is the lending environment is really different this time around.
Oh, that's a great point.
There's not as much mortgage activity now as there was back then. And I think a lot of the leverage that was in the market then helped, keep home prices rising. Underwriting has totally changed. So
yeah, that's right.
The amount of documentation that's required for buyers in today's market is very different, and that should help make sure that people can actually pay their mortgage. That's an important thing that didn't happen in the last run-up in home prices that we saw. And I know that question, it's a tough one because people hesitate. If they think we're in a housing bubble, they want to stay away from the housing market. And I think that, that can kind of be a disservice because then you're missing out on prices today and you're missing out on lower mortgage rates and maybe you'll see higher mortgage rates in the future. I think, from the perspective of buyers, it's difficult to know in advance, but I can tell you a lot of the indicators are different this time around. We don't have rampant overbuilding that we had last time, in addition to some of those mortgage characteristics. That said, housing is expensive, and it can be difficult to save up enough for a down payment and looking at that monthly payment. But I would say, if you can find a home that fits your needs and your wants and also fits your budget, and still have some savings left over so that if times get rough, you have something to rely on, then I think it's a good time to buy a home.
I agree. I think now is as good a time as any. And I think furthermore, there is no perfect time to buy a home. And I think sitting around and waiting really doesn't do the economy any service.
Yes, that's true too.
Thank you. That was super helpful and super informative. And thank you for joining us with Economic Insights with Danielle Hale and Audrey Whittington at Realtor.com. Please check out some of our other videos.